Welcome back, everybody, to the Temple Daily Telegram Sports Podcast. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Thanks, man.
A couple days away. It's Tuesday night. Doing this a day earlier to kind of fit holiday schedules and all that, but,
Tis the season.
That's it. Josh Weaver back with Daniel Zepeda.
Hello.
And Marcus Hood's over there.
Howdy.
We have a district champion, newly crowned district champion in the area, Temple Wildcats, winning the outright 12-6A title last Thursday with a very exciting 27-24 victory over Shoemaker at Leo Buckley Stadium. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Belton back with a roar last week. The Tigers smoking Ellison in Belton's first game since October 30th to keep themselves right in the playoff mix. And speaking of playoffs, we have a couple area teams still alive in the chase for Arlington and a spot in a state championship game. Some second-round victories to talk about, some first-round victories. All of that to go tonight in this podcast. So, Marcus, I will hand it over to you. If you can let us know some of those scores from last week. Please.
Oh, sure, yeah, okay.
You're Marcus, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, you already mentioned the Temple and Belton.
Victories, yes. Temple beat Shoemaker 27-24, and Belton beat Belton beat Ellison 56-33.
We're looking for our name tags. Usually we wear them because we don't even know, but tonight.
Our cue card guys.
Sorry.
Out.
Okay, in the playoffs, Class 4A Division 2, Solato in a nice exciting game beat Belleville 28-23.
Yes.
Rogers upset Poth 21-20. And in Class 2A, Holland fell to Garrison 7-3.
7-6, or was it 3?
It was just 3.
7-3. Okay.
7-3.
Well, Marcus was there, so we're gonna assume Marcus remembers the final
I mean,
score.
if I put 6 somewhere, I'm sorry about that. I don't remember another one. Falls City beat Granger 39-16, and one I forgot. Class 4A, Corpus Christi Miller beat Lampasas 54-49. Moving on to the private schools, Holy Trinity, I think they're still scoring in that one, 112 to Galveston O'Connell 66. Hard to think of that as a 45-point run roll game, but that's what it was.
When you get
not run roll, point mercy roll.
You know what? When you get into the triple digits, it's just at that point, it's like, you know what? We're good. Let's go home. Save some for next week. Let's call it.
I know, right? Exactly.
Is that just me? Maybe.
Well, whatever. And then Central Texas Christian School defeated Weatherford Christian 49-0. It's the second time this year they beat Weatherford Christian.
Yeah, beat that team, combined 99-0 or something over in the two games? Yeah.
Weatherford Christian, though, that's their first year as an 11-man program, so.
Right, yeah.
And good of them to make the playoffs.
Correct.
And kind of legitimately, too. They did win a few games out of the district to get there, so.
It's tough to make that transition, so it's nice to see a little reward there for a program.
And teams trying to get in the playoffs, Temple and Belton and Josh?
Well, Temple is already in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, that's.
I understand. You were trying to transition over to it.
Again, we don't have our cue cards. The segue may not have been there, but.
I'm going to go ahead and go to my Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, see, I was going to say Marcus has tomorrow off, so I think he's already kind of on the road, right?
I am.
Or something.
But I am working Thanksgiving, so.
Yeah, yes, as well. Oh, yeah, so you mentioned Temple, and I will continue to talk about Temple now. The Wildcats close out the regular season this Friday at home against Killeen. That's a 7:30 kickoff. Also Friday night, Belton is hosting Shoemaker. And in the playoffs Friday night, Solato takes on Solato takes on Carthage in a 4A Division II Region 3 semifinal. That one is set for 5:30 at Randall Reed Stadium.
Go Solato.
The Solato Eagles.
Solato. Potato. Let's just call this whole thing off.
See, Solato just runs the ball all day. Solato is just a passing machine. See, I can't even say it.
Yeah, see,
it's Tuesday night, not Wednesday.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Rogers is taking on Buffalo in a 3A Division II Region 4 semifinal game. That's 7:30 at Waco ISD Stadium.
Couple of district foes, right?
That's right. The entire district, all 4 teams that qualified out of that district are playing in the semifinals. So guaranteed to be a regional final between 2 teams that have already played each other this season, with Lexington and Franklin playing in the other.
Does not happen often.
And in TAP 6-man Division II area round, Holy Trinity is going to be playing Our Lady of the Hills Hawks in that one. And Central Texas Christian is going to play Waco Riker Catholic. That's at noon on Saturday in a TAPS Division IV state quarterfinal. How about that? Good stuff. Marcus talked to all of our area coaches tonight, so I'm sure he's going to give us a whole bunch of information on when we start talking about those games later, or just, some of the same things we've already been talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Meanwhile, the Wildcats, how about it? 8-1 overall and 6-0 in district after that big win over Shoemaker. That game had 4 lead changes in the second half. It was a 13-10 Temple lead at halftime. Shoemaker went up 17-13. Temple went back ahead 20-17. Then Shoemaker went back ahead again, 24-20, leaving about 4 minutes left for Temple for the go-ahead touchdown, which they scored with 1:41 remaining, an 8-yard touchdown run by Michael Harrison-Pilot. And then Temple's defense with a big stand at the end on a 4th-and-1 play. A trio of defensive linemen, Javen Taylor, Eric Shorter, and Jaylon Jackson, tackled Shoemaker running back Devin Brown for a loss of 1, giving the ball back to Temple, and the Wildcats ran out the clock and celebrated the program's first outright district title since 2015. And what I learned today, the first district championship in the state's highest classification since 2007.
So kind of you can understand why the music was blaring. And,
I mean, and rightly so.
I think you said Coach Stewart was even doing a little dancing and stuff. So
he definitely, Coach Scott Stewart is he doesn't really dwell on things, whether it's positive or negative, very long. But this one he wanted to make sure he enjoyed it. He says it's because he's getting older and he wants to start learning a little more, learning how to appreciate the finer things. And so rightly so. They should celebrate it. And they have a chance now Friday to run the table in district, and then they have an off week before they will host Waxahachie in the Class 6A Division II by district round of the playoffs. So a lot still to play for Temple. I don't expect the Wildcats to kind of back off here, especially having an idle week before the playoffs. That's kind of unusual. That doesn't really happen, so I expect them to kind of do as much as they can to stay in this rhythm and carry this momentum through this game against the Kangaroos, who are struggling. They're not going to make the playoffs this year. I think 2-5 overall, 1-4 in district.
Yeah, they've had their issues, but hey, it's 2020. 12-6A is still pretty competitive from top to bottom.
Yeah, exactly. So there's not going to be a whole lot of let up. You might see some reserves get in late in that game if Temple does have it wrapped up, but they're not jumping ahead like that. Thinking about the fourth quarter of Friday night, they're thinking about playing about as soundly as they did last week against Shoemaker, and then going into that idle week before the playoffs.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And just the Shoemaker game, we really kind of hyped it up the week before, and, it was the big showdown. Shoemaker, coming off of that 51-50 overtime loss, you knew they were going to be hungry, still trying to get a district title. Temple obviously wanted that district title, wanted to remain perfect. So, that game really lived up to the hype. You were there, and the excitement, the atmosphere.
It really did, yeah. It's hard to gauge the excitement and the atmosphere in that stadium in Leo Buckley, especially in the press box, because it's pretty soundproof. They have some sound, piped in a little bit, but
it's pretty removed.
But you could tell, in the faces of Temple's players and coaches, and the faces of Shoemaker's players and coaches, just how much that game kind of meant to both teams. Shoemaker going for that district championship, it would have been its first in a while, or maybe first overall. I don't know exactly, but it obviously would have been pretty important. And it was a well played game. No turnovers, I believe, if I remember correctly. Neither team turned it over. There were not very many penalties, and obviously close. No team led by. Well, Temple's early 7-0 lead, but that was the biggest lead for anybody in that game. So yeah, it definitely lived up to the hype, like you said, and a well-deserved victory for Temple. And Shoemaker, Harker Heights first, and then Temple, and now Belton. I mean, that's a rough stretch. Shoemaker's trying to get into the playoffs.
Right.
There's still 3 spots up for grabs.
Right.
In that district. And before Dan, you talk about Belton's big matchup against the Grey Wolves. Temple is 6-0 in district. Shoemaker and Bryan now both 4-2. Belton and Heights at 3-2. Mm-hmm. So 4 teams there trying to get 3 spots. Big game for both Belton and Shoemaker this week. Belton's got another big one next week against Heights if all goes as planned and no COVID things pop up again in this district. It's going to come down to the wire.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at that district. I mean, it's just so congested still. Temple locking up the lone playoff spot as of now. But I'm not sure, Marcus, you're better at the math than I am. But I believe, Shoemaker and Bryan at 4-2 apiece. I believe if both of those teams, all they have to do is win this week, and they secure playoff wins.
Right.
Or playoff berths, excuse me. And then you've got, Belton. If they can take care of business, they move to 4-2. Harker Heights, I believe, plays Copper's Cove, which appears to be over all of their COVID issues after a couple of weeks of having to, forfeit and cancel games. So again, if Belton and Harker Heights get wins this week, they both move to 4-2, which sets up next week a showdown for that last spot in the playoffs. Definitely a lot still to play for Belton. But first, you got to take care of business this week. And coming out last week, they really, I think, surprised a lot of people. You're not real sure what to expect as far as a team who, for the last 3 weeks, has just been practicing and hasn't had a game. You haven't even been practicing that full amount of time with your full roster, just with kids in quarantines for positive COVID test or subsequent contact tracing. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, you're not sure what you're going to get, and what do the Tigers do? They come out and they amass 525 yards, the third time this season that they've had over 500 yards in a game, and 25 first downs. They don't commit a turnover for the first time this season, and I asked Brett Sniffen, their head coach, about that, and he was excited for it, but he was also kind of nonchalant, which is what he typically does, and just in the fact that he was like, well, yeah, I'm happy we did it, but we've been working all season towards that, so it was kind of bound to happen eventually. But you don't expect that kind of performance after weeks of just being off, where physical ability and just your endurance and a lot of stuff kind of comes into play. So the real turning point in that one, I feel like, is it was 7-7. Not Shoemaker. Ellison scored the first touchdown. Belton comes back and ties it up, and then immediately goes for the onside kick, and they recover it. So that sets up a short field. Belton scores 14-7, and then they immediately force a 3-and-out. Versus the Ellison offense. Tigers get the ball right back, score another touchdown, and then Belton ends up scoring right before the buzzer at halftime. So, really that 28-point second quarter, most points the Tigers have scored this season in a quarter, was really the turning point, obviously. And then another big takeaway, in my opinion, is the fact that, to start the second half, Belton gets the ball first, they punt, so not much of a drive going there, and then Ellison comes back and immediately scores a touchdown to make it 35-21. Now, at times, we've seen Belton kind of start to fold, start to get mentally, kind of down on themselves and kind of start to turn it in. But Belton comes right back, scores a touchdown, extends the lead, and it was pretty much over from there. So Sniffen was really excited about the mental fortitude to be able to kind of rally and not get down on themselves. And you have to think part of that's just the fact that, they've had a postponement. They've had the Temple game taken away from them. So, maybe part of that is just we know what we've lost. We know that every time we come out on the field, it may be our last game. So, yeah, let's try to win everyone here on out. And it's probably going to take that for Belton to get into the playoffs. Harker Heights is a really good team. You have to think they'll take care of business this week. And we'll see what happens next week. But Shoemaker's no slouch, as you saw last week.
No, yeah, Shoemaker's a very good team. That offense is potent. Going into that game last week, they were averaging more than 500 yards a game.
Yeah, still averaging over 500, 43 points a game.
Yeah, it's quarterback Ty Bell and receiver Monterey Baldwin, running back Devin Brown, who I mentioned earlier, and another running back DeAndre Exford. Just a really and a well-coached team as well. They kind of have what they do down pat at this point of the season, and they're obviously coming off of back-to-back losses, going on the road in the regular season finale for them. They're going to want to wrap up that playoff spot. They're not going to want to wait around seeing how things fall into place the following week, because because if they lose to Belton, they don't have the tiebreaker against Belton or Heights now. So it's this is a must win for Shoemaker now all of a sudden as well.
Yeah.
So I expect this to be a big game. And Shoemaker beat Belton last year and for the first time in a couple years. So they're obviously going to kind of go back to that game. And a lot of these players were around for that game last year as well. So kind of draw from that experience and go into this one. So that's going to be. I would say that's probably the marquee game of this week in 12-6A is that one now, just based on everything that's happened.
Just so many implications, and just a couple shout outs on the Belton defense. The Tigers gave up 33 points, but for an Ellison team that really prides themselves on trying to get the big home run play and try to get chunk plays at a time, the secondary played really well. Brett Sniffen. Doesn't throw around the words, awesome and fantastic that often, but he used those words to describe how the secondary played for Belton this week. So, you had some guys that have just been really playing well this season overall. Linebacker Joe Sniffen leads Belton with 52 tackles. Aaron Bain in the secondary, 45 tackles, a couple of interceptions. Malik Jackson kind of anchoring that defensive line. He's got 32 tackles, 6 for losses, 2.5 sacks. Trent West, a junior defensive back who they really kind of value as that shutdown defensive back when they need someone like that. He's got 27 tackles and also a couple of interceptions. And then kind of a name that has really surprised the Belton coaches, Braxton Haynes. He's a defensive lineman, a junior. And he really kind of turned things on this season. He's got about 27 tackles, maybe less on the season, but 6 of them are for losses, and he leads Belton with 4.5 sacks. So, this defense has had their issues at time, but, they've really kind of clicked over the past few games they've played. And when they're healthy and everyone's good to go, Belton definitely has the talent to be that 4th playoff team out of 12-6A, but you got to start with taking care of Shoemaker, and even though you're getting them at home at Tiger Field, that's no easy task.
Yeah, and I think we do know, we for sure know the other playoff teams in 11-6A. I mentioned Temple's going to be play Waxahachie in Division II. The other Division II team, the number 1 seed out of that district, is Cedar Hill, and then Division I. It's Duncanville as the number 1 seed and DeSoto number 2. Cool. And Belton and Shoemaker both likely go D1 if they make the playoffs. Harker Heights same way. Bryan, I think, is small enough as far as enrollment goes to get the other Division II seed out of 6A if the Vikings make it. I'm pretty sure I have that right. But so. The first round matchup for whichever team out of 12-6A makes
brutal.
It in Division I is going to be
brutal.
Yeah, it's either
the first step is
Duncanville or DeSoto.
First step is getting there.
Yeah, that's right, and that's going to be
Give
tough
yourself
too.
a chance.
Yep.
And if you're Belton, that's all they've been talking about is just getting into the playoffs. You don't want to be just one and done, but they're just trying to get that 10th game back since they didn't have the Temple game.
Yeah. We talk every now and then about when it comes to the playoffs, the team that gets hot at the right time will make a run. Solato's kind of been hot all season, but Rogers. What did they start? 1-5 or 1-4 or something like that?
Yeah.
Now 7-5 and beat a previously undefeated Poth team last week to get a rematch with Buffalo. Buffalo beat What was that?
I think it was a chair.
Oh,
I'm not sure. It was.
Need some WD-40 in here.
coyote at the window.
I know that's what
Fucking
it sounded
cat.
like. It was like, wait.
Yeah, but Buffalo beat Rogers in the district matchup 46-28, but that game was tied 28 all after the third quarter, I believe. So the rematch is looking like it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, that was the first district game for both of those. So.
Yeah, and going back to Solato, the Eagles beat Belleville last week 28-23. That game was 28-10. In the second half, Belleville scored a couple touchdowns to get within 5, and then Solato had a defensive stand, kind of like Temple, to close out that game. And now the Eagles get to play Carthage, which, for an Alan Hare coach team, bringing Solato in there, anything is possible. A few years ago, they had to go play West Orange Stark
Right.
in the fourth round of the playoffs, and it was a 14-0 win for West Orange Stark. But
And I was at that game, and
yeah.
there were several plays. If it goes different,
Right.
Solato comes out winning that
right,
one.
so I don't think. I mean, obviously, you look at Carthage, you think of the pedigree, the tradition, how many times they've been in the state title game recently, all that. But you don't discount what Solato's got going on. And I don't know what Hare, told you about this matchup, if anything, Marcus, today.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you've touched on. I mean, a couple of years ago, I think it was 2017, Solato falls to West Orange Stark. Last year, they fall to Texarkana Pleasant Grove. Pleasant Grove wins the state title. West Orange Stark is the runner-up, losing to Pleasant Grove that year.
Right.
And so, it's not like Solato's not familiar with playing big games. Carthage, of course, they were a Class 4A Division I school winning state titles, and now they dropped down to Division II, and everybody is expecting them to win a state title. And, Hare's like, you can't really stop them. You're just trying to control it, and every time you get the ball, you want to score, make a stop here and there, kind of control the game flow. And, I don't think these kids in Solato are going to be that intimidated. I mean, they went up against Belleville. Belleville was higher ranked. They got up against China Spring and Waco Conley in their own district, and both of those were higher ranked when they played them. Well, Conley, I don't think at the time was, but they were previously in the season. China Spring was. I mean, these kids know what it's like to play.
And Solato plays hard. I mean, they're like, I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but I mean they are physical. They're aggressive. And they're very crisp at what they do.
Right.
I mean, so like you're saying, I mean, yeah, intimidation. There's not really anything there. I think they're pretty confident in what they do, and they show that on a weekly basis with how they've been playing, all season.
Right, and it's been pointed out, Solato runs that slot T, and in the last 68 games Carthage has played, their one loss has come to a slot T team, but you can't really compare that. I mean, you look back at that game, Carthage made some mistakes that could have easily got them to win.
Yeah,
It wasn't
Liberty
about
Hill,
the,
right?
Yeah, it wasn't about the offenses the team ran. It was more Carthage just had some mistakes here and there, and it was kind of a windy day that played into it. And
But you mentioned controlling the tempo and,
Right.
and the flow of the game. I mean, that's incredibly important for Solato to do just in any night. I mean,
So their bread and
their
butter.
possessions are going to be limited anyway with the sustained drives that they like to put together. So if you don't get points at the end of one of those 6-minute drives, your opportunities disappear quickly.
yeah, most definitely. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you want to keep moving the ball, sustain that drive, keep Carthage's offense on the sideline, and get them a little bit nervous and fidgety out there while your offense is doing its thing. And yeah, you can't have just short possessions if you're Solato. And Hare knows that. His kids know that, and that's what he's preaching. And he's also, he's not trying to play miracle worker. They know they're not going to shut Carthage out. Like I said, it's just a matter of kind of outplaying them, getting that one scoring one more time than Carthage, basically. So if it comes to a shootout, you just hope you're on the right end of it. So it should be a fun one.
Oh, for sure. And I think that Rogers-Buffalo game is going to be a fun one as well. Waco ISD Stadium, a good host. Nice middle ground meeting spot for a lot of our area teams when they get to this point of the season. So yeah, that one's going to be good. And Rogers, like I said earlier, just hitting its stride at the right time and finishing what were they third? Right, they were third in that district, weren't they?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ahead of Lexington.
Yeah.
behind Franklin and Buffalo. But
the takedown
yeah,
Hoth.
yeah.
Hoth
Yep.
last
21-20.
and then the week before they come back from a pretty sizable halftime deficit, I believe. So I mean, they've been out a couple of these, but
And this is the second straight third round appearance for Rogers and head coach Charlie Roten.
Yeah.
They were there. They were in the third round last year as well.
Right.
And they had to go up against Gunter. Right?
Gunter,
Yeah.
where, of course, I think that's where Roten came from. So.
Yeah. The offensive coordinator.
Yeah, they're definitely hoping to get past this round, but they are coming in on a nice winning streak. And when I talked to Coach Roten today, he did say he feels like they're playing their best at the right time. They're kind of peaking, and he's kind of explained the early slow start to us before. It's like had some young guys learning new positions, and had we played this schedule last year with the team we had last year, we probably would have been undefeated or maybe 4-1. But you have a lot of new guys in new positions. You're trying to get them comfortable there, and it worked out. I mean, they're not going to play around here. You're not going to play an easy schedule to get your guys confidence. You play tough guys to get them kind of build up their toughness. So that's what they did. And yeah, now you get a rematch against Buffalo, and Rowan said they feel pretty confident about it. I mean, they're not outright going to say we've got this in the bag or anything like that, but they're going up there thinking, we're a different team than that first time because we were coming off all those losses, or that was one of them, and we had a lot of youth, and now we're kind of clicking now. So it could be a different game, could be a fun one.
What's kind of the exchange in the fact that you're playing a team a second time in a season? You've seen them once before, so you've got some takeaways from the previous game. But the flip side, they've also seen you already, so they've got some takeaways from you. So I mean,
Right.
Do you think playing a team a second time gives you an advantage, or does it put you at a disadvantage because they also know what you like to do?
A little bit of both, but I think, to be honest, when it's two pretty good teams, I favor the team that lost the first round, just because so many times the team that won, they have that mindset, we've already beaten this team. The team that lost is making adjustments. They know what they did wrong. The team that won's kind of thinking, we beat them.
Yeah.
Let's just stick with
do
what we know.
works, yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's
And
a
the
good
losing
point.
team has so much time to think about it and change and get better. Not that Buffalo hasn't gotten better since then, and probably knows, Rogers is not the same Rogers team, but
Yep. Yeah, there's probably a little bit of a psychological thing to it, and I think the coach's answer would be like, we just have to execute. I mean, 'cause that's honestly what it's going to come down to.
Yeah.
When teams have already played each other, you just gotta
I think I've heard
do what
that
you're
a lot
supposed to
this
do.
week.
Yeah. And just real quick, Marcus, the CTCS Waco Riker matchup, two good teams there. I mean, Riker's record doesn't say that, but they put up 83 points last week.
Yeah.
But I mean, any just quick note on that one, and then Holy Trinity, and we'll.
Yeah, it's Riker traditionally is kind of a good football team in the area, so it's not like CTCS with a nice 7-1 records going into it. Jeremy Callahan's, he knows Riker has some good tradition, plays some good football, but they kind of feel pretty comfortable just because they're playing good football right now. I mean, Weatherford Christian, obviously, last week's win. Like I said earlier, Weatherford Christian, a first-year 11-man program, as Callahan pointed out, and he said that they were a lot better this week, obviously, than their first game. So it was not necessarily an easy 49-0 victory, if there's such thing as a tough one. But and then, Riker, they put up a lot of points last week, and this is a game that kind of, for this Division 4, the winner goes to state semifinals because there's not a lot of teams there. So, but I kind of feel like CTCS is just playing some good football. They've got, can't even think of his name off the top of my head. Ryan Turley, that's it. Averaging 10 yards per carry, over 10 yards per carry.
It's a walking first down.
Right, and you see some of that, and you're thinking, okay, a guy who averages 10 yards per carry, he does that because they just do it when they're not expecting it. Well, he's carried the ball 138 times, has almost 1,400 yards and 28 touchdowns, and Callahan just praised him just because the effort he's put on since basically his freshman year, wanting to build up to this moment in this year, and Callahan, said he's got the team around him this year. Good offensive line, a good quarterback who's passed for over 1,000 yards, and has about a 70% completion rate, which just makes the whole team better.
In his first year as the starting quarterback,
right?
Even more impressively,
Alec Gonzalez.
Yeah. So yeah, you got the small division in Taps. You got a team that can balance their attack with a pretty studly running back, a good quarterback. That's going to pay dividends. I mean, it makes sense that they won that game last week, 49-0, and they could easily put up a good score like that this week. I'm not saying they're going to, but we could see it happen.
Yeah, you got to think that scoring points may not be a huge issue for the Lions going into that one, but it'll probably a lot of that will just depend on how the defense stands out and how they hold up under that pressure.
Right, were you in on that phone call? That's pretty much what he said too.
I was on the other line, man. I'm just listening along because, I got nothing else to do around here. Y'all don't give me any responsibility. So,
well, you can finish writing my story. But anyway, then you want to talk about a little bit about Holy Trinity. They're, for both. I do want to say for Holy Trinity and Central Texas Christian School. Apparently, last week's was the first playoff wins for both these programs' history. Which I knew that about Holy Trinity. I did not realize that about Central Texas Christian. I know I've covered a lot of their games since well, not a lot, but I've covered a few of their games since they opened that school or started athletics. And I guess I hadn't realized that there. But, yeah, Holy Trinity, talking to James Shelton, or was it Greg Koch? I'm not sure. No, it was Shelton.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's a dig at.
Yeah, somebody called Greg Koch the player or the coach of the week this week. But yeah, I'm not sure how he's coaching that team.
He's not the coach at Holy Trinity.
No, if he's coaching it, it's a long drive from that job he has up in Midland right now. But anyway, shout out to James Shelton for getting Holy Trinity some recognition. 112 points, and when I talked to Shelton, who is a six-man guy, played six-man, has coached six-man. He said he's never had a game that scored over 100 points, so that was kind of a first for him. And said it was fun for the kids just to kind of be a part of it. And they're kind of high on life out at Holy Trinity with that first program win. Said it's nice to put that in the trophy case along with all those academic records that they have, because Holy Trinity, yeah, they've got some kids that are known for their academics. They've got some state titles and things like that. So he wants to build that culture there. And hopefully it's happening. They've got a tough test this week, but at this point I don't think they care. It's like we've gotten there. We've done some things. We're changing the face of this team that was 1-9 last year to playoff team. So if we win this week, great. If not, we're going to be upset, but it's not the end of the world for us.
Yeah. Right. They've accomplished a lot, so that's good for the Celtics.
Yep. So obviously another exciting week of football ahead after a fun holiday, hopefully for everybody. Obviously, before we go, we want to send our condolences out to everyone in Cameron and folks in Temple as well. We, woke up Monday morning to hear some tough news with the death of Desmond Williams, who was 30, and Tryon Smith, who's 22. Fishing accident. They both drowned. That was obviously really tough to hear. Tryon was an incredible football player, a really nice kid. His career came to a painful end in the 2015 championship game with Cameron Yo after just an incredible senior season. Leg injury knocked him out of the game in that second quarter, which we all thought was a tough break for him, an unfair break. And now this news is obviously 3 million times more devastating to hear. So yeah, just condolences and prayers, and hope everyone can obviously find a way to remember the good things of both of them and kind of the impact that both of those guys have had. Marcus, you watched Tryon a bunch of times and spoke to him, and just incredible player, but obviously what we've heard and learned and known, just a nice young man as well.
Yeah, he really was, and that's the thing about. Just a lot of the kids around here just really you have great athletes, but they're just great human beings as well. I mean, they're respectful. And Traion was always like that. I mean, he was just a good, hard player, but at the end of the game, win or lose, he was always willing to talk. And, I mean, he'll tell you like it was. And he was, like Coach Rhodes said, he was like kind of the perfect guy that you wanted there because he would do what you tell him to do, and he would do it well. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I woke up to that news, and kind of the first thing I saw was your tweet about it, and then I was like, oh my, because you don't expect that. But I've been around here long enough where I see that so many times, but no matter how many times it happens when it's so young, 22, even 30 is like, wow.
Yeah.
You don't expect it. It's a tragic thing.
It's incredibly, just shocking. I mean, and you don't really know like what to think, or you end up just kind of seriously being speechless for a little bit, and just like, wondering what the heck.
Because I mean, we don't go to these schools, but we cover these kids, so we kind of feel like we're part of their lives at some point, and any kid that we talk to over the years, any kid that we watch, you never want to see anything tragic happen to them, no matter who they are, what they've done. And
right.
It's tough, man. It really is.
And Desmond Williams, another Cameron Yale graduate athlete there as well. I believe they were cousins, at least behind a wife, and just really, it's hard to understand and grasp, especially, in this year where it just seems like, around every corner is just another thing that we kind of have to, bar our necks at and just kind of get through. I mean, it's just a tough blow for everybody out there in Cameron and beyond.
Right. Yeah. I know there's some fundraisers going on for both families. One of them is a football game Saturday morning at Yeofield, I do believe. They're kind of doing it as a little fundraiser to raise money. It's $5 to watch, $20 to play. It's kind of a good idea. And then there's some various bank accounts, I believe, set up. I don't have the information, so I'm not going to tell you where to go for that. But
that information's out there, and that can be found anywhere. But
so anybody, if you can, I know it's tough for everybody right now, but if you can't find a way, these families probably need it.
Yeah, and if you kind of want to, put a smile on your face, I'm sure there's YouTube videos of Tryon running the ball and some highlights. There's got to be some highlights out there somewhere. If you hadn't seen him play or hadn't seen some of his runs in a little while, since it's been 4 or 5 years since he played, but check some of those out, because he was good,
right?
Really, really good.
I never got to see him play. I was a little bit after that, but I've just heard stories of probably one of the better running backs to come out of Cameron Yo, and that's a storied school that has a lot of great history. But just real quick, kind of touching on what you said, Marcus, with our job, we try to be as partial and unbiased and just tell it as it is. That's our job. That's the way it should be. But we do some of these stories. We talk to these kids a lot, and especially the kids that we really get to do kind of like personal features on. You get to learn their background, learn some interesting things about them, learn the names of their brothers and sisters, their hometowns, etc. From that point, it really kind of changes things to where, it's more than just a face. It's more than just a jersey number. And, I don't think that really impacts how we do our job. But at the same time, when you hear news like you did on Twitter or wherever you heard the news about what happened, it really it's impactful. And it's not just, at that point, it's not just news. It's not just being unbiased. It's not just being, well, this is what it is. It's more than that. It's more than him as the football player. It's him as the human being, and the legacy he leaves behind. And a lot of people in Cameron and Milam County and just Central Texas are hurting because of the loss. So your hearts go out to them. And again, just prayers, condolences. It's a tough time right now, especially being around the holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. That's well said, for sure. Well, appreciate everyone listening in once again this week, and we will be back for another episode next week.